Australia living with the virus. Look at out there, and Australians taking wickets in the virus.
How's that? You messed about, I caught you out. How's that?
This is Australia living with the virus. Look at out there, and Australians taking wickets in the virus.
Yeah, Australians living with the virus. This is from today. This is from the 7th of January 2022. New South Wales hospitals bracing for tripling of COVID patients. This is from 3 days ago, the 4th of January 2022. COVID positive nurses are working in New South Wales hospitals due to severe staffing shortages. This is from a week ago, from New Year's Day. New South Wales hospitals resort to flying nurses from overseas as staff are begged to take extra shifts amid COVID crisis. And if we're supposedly living with the virus, maybe get enough vaccines, you chutch. Especially for the kids. Especially before they got to go back to school.
Article from the 1st of February 2022 titled, Morrison seeks to defend record on women.
Scott Morrison has sought to defend his record on women, insisting federal parliament is a safer place since an alleged rape in a minister's office. I believe it's safer today than it was a year ago because of those changes and the brave stands that people have taken on these issues, Mr. Morrison said. He insisted the complaints mechanism and counseling support meant anyone who came forward with allegations similar to Ms. Higgins would receive greater support. It provides an environment should, God forbid, that ever happen to anyone again, that they will find a situation very different to the one Ms. Higgins found herself in, Mr. Morrison said.
That she found herself in. Fucking excuse me? Fucking what? Oh my fucking god. Really, this comment sums it up perfectly. How the fuck can you say something safer by having a complaints mechanism? Nothing to prevent it from happening again. Oh my fucking god. This guy runs Australia. Fucking hell. He insists the complaints mechanism and counselling support meant anyone who came forward with allegations similar to Miss Higgins would receive greater support. What the actual fuck? Has anyone seen any press ask, hey, how about preventing it?
Unions carrying on like this in the middle of the night to cause such terrible disruption.
And I just want to make the point straight up. This is not a strike. We are not on strike. All of the people behind me, all the people sitting in the meal rooms all across the network are ready to work.
This is it. Blinded by the light, wrapped up like a douche, another runner in the night. Blinded by the light.
It was the bushfires 2 years ago. Now Prime Minister Scott Morrison is being savaged by locals for his handling of the prolonged flood crisis along the east coast. They are furious and frustrated that help is taking so long to reach them, and in many cases, it still hasn't.
Scott Morrison travelled to Lismore in northern New South Wales today.
Prime Minister Scott Morrison has continued his carefully choreographed tour of flood-affected areas, arriving in Queensland this morning. For the second day in a row, he's come under fire for failing to publicly meet flood victims for fear of bad press.
The curated Queensland stopover, hosting 3 of 4 photo ops behind closed doors, avoiding angry residents.
Begin, I'm counting in. 5, 6, 7, 8.
My blue-suited baby is driving me crazy. My obsession from a western. My dance for a day. My Romeo, a cowboy got from head to toe. Wanna make you mine, better get it.
Talking about a National Integrity Commission, you are asking Australians to trust you, and you haven't delivered on a promise about trust, about integrity. So how can Australians trust you when it's a broken promise, isn't it?
No, it's not.
But you promised you would establish one in the last term. You have not. That's a broken promise.
We put forward our proposal in detailed legislation, and it has not been supported by the Labor Party. I need bipartisan support to put that in place.
You see what he's trying to do there? Oh, I did, but Labor didn't like it, so it's their fault. Now let's have a look at what he put forward in 2020. Note the word draft. See? Draft bill. Now there's a big difference to actually putting forward a bill. Now let's have a look at the fact sheet. Yeah, I get why no one liked it. It's fucking shit. That's dividing it up into 2 bits. And one of those parts, it would only investigate criminal offences and would not make findings of corruption at large. And by the looks of it, nobody supported it. Alright, so a quick recap from my point of view. The guy's not going to put together something that's going to have to investigate him and all of his mates. So we wouldn't get an effective anti-corruption anything out of that guy. So he's like, oh yeah, slapped together a draft. Yeah, I did it. No one likes it. So it's their fault there isn't one. Alright, this video is going to be as long as it needs to be. I'm going to show you a clip of Scott Morrison.
I'm not going to allow her to be silenced. I'm not going to allow her to be pushed aside as the pylon comes in to try and silence her. I'll stand up with her. My team's standing up with her, and we will make sure that she won't be silenced. I know there's plenty of people who would like to do that.
Now, who is he talking about? Who are the strong words of support for? This person. And now I'd like to compare that clip of Scott Morrison defending a TERF to his commentary after he spoke to his wife Jenny in regards to Brittany Higgins.
I said yesterday in the Parliament that we had to listen to Brittany. I have listened to Brittany. Jenny and I spoke last night, and she said to me, you have to think about this as a father first. What would you want to happen if it were our girls? Jenny has a way of clarifying things, always has.
You said this conversation when you came home and you had it with Jenny, you thought about it as a husband and a father. Shouldn't have thought about it as a human being. What happens if men don't have a wife and children? Do they reach the same compassionate conclusion?
Well, look, in my own experience, being a husband and a father is central to me, my human being. So I just can't follow the question you're putting.
Did you think yesterday, as a leader of this country, that it was important you had to take?
I did, and said so yesterday. I discussed it with Jenny. She had seen it, and we discussed it. That's how we deal with these things.
And this just really gets me because Brittany, back during the last election, she was silenced. She was pushed aside. And she was silent up until the breaking point of seeing Scott Morrison with Grace Tame. I get that. I feel a bit sick even just talking about it. And then when everything did become public, they still try to silence her.
You said that you were going to investigate whether anyone in your office had briefed journalists against Brittany Higgins' partner. What did you find?
Can the Prime Minister now finally tell us, did his office seek to undermine Brittany Higgins' loved ones?
So yeah, the point of making this TikTok is after hearing Scott Morrison's defence of a TERF and him saying, oh, I won't let her be silenced, I couldn't help but think of Brittany and what happened there. I gotta say, because after watching the USA, I'm not surprised at all that he's endorsing the Australian version of Marjorie Taylor Greene. Yeah, not surprising.
4-year-old autistic son. We are grateful to receive funds through the NDIS, but I've heard many stories of people having their funds cut recently under the current government, including our own. Can you please tell me what the future of the NDIS looks like under your government?
Jenny and I have been blessed. We've got 2 children that haven't had to go through that. And so for parents with children who are disabled, I can only try and understand.
Now, you know I was going to comment on this. Now, here is apology.
I think people would also appreciate that I would have had no such intention of suggesting that anything other than every child is a blessing is true. Every single child is precious and a blessing to every single parent. And I don't think that is in dispute. And I don't think anyone would seriously think that I had intent of anything different to that. But I can appreciate, particularly with some of the ways it was communicated and the way it was sought to be represented by our political opponents in the middle of an election, that it could have been taken in a different context. And I'm deeply sorry about that.
Okay, now I'm going to break down everything that's wrong with what he said and his apology, because I follow everything to do with the NDIS pretty closely. Alright, straight out the gate, the woman mentions that she has an autistic son, and the Prime Minister says that his family's blessed because no one has a disability. And then in his apology, he says that he never implied that all children aren't blessings. So, okay, but to bring it back to the original point, the NDIS isn't about children, it's about people with disabilities. Because him believing that every child is a blessing doesn't cancel out him believing that it's a blessing that no one in his family has a disability. And so with the sleight of hand from talking about something to do with disabilities to the mention of a disabled child to then moving the focus to children, and so using his religion as cover, if blessings translates to being better, it very much seems that he does believe that him and his family not having a disability is what makes him better than a person with a disability. And now if you read between the lines and how he said that it's a blessing that his children didn't have to go through something like that, you know, go through something like something bad that happens one day and then somehow ends. Because I remember when the NDIS Minister, Linda Reynolds, kind of implied that the NDIS isn't working because people are still disabled. Because you see, if we just act like disability is just temporary, then assistance only needs to be limited. See what they're trying to do there? China is exerting enormous pressure on Pacific Island nations, Scott Morrison says. Fends off questions about whether his government was caught off guard by the security deal with Solomon Islands. Okay, now I think both major parties are focusing on the security concern that China poses. I've said this before, but if you're gonna say to your people that this country is a threat, a security threat, need to be concerned, then why would you make us require these devices? Like, you have to have them to have your internet working and your phone line working, and you get these devices manufactured in a country that you're saying is a threat. See how that doesn't make much sense? Can't really have it both fucking ways. Because if they're saying China's a threat, then why hasn't anyone addressed the potential security issues that could come from making our telecommunication capabilities dependent on a device manufactured there? Like, aren't we getting submarines to protect us from the country that makes our NBN boxes? Scott Morrison went to the Northern Territory.
And talking about the rising crime challenges. And the cold facts, they are quite compelling. House break-ins up 46% over last year. Commercial break-ins, cafes, restaurants, newsagents, and all of this up 60%. And assaults up 6% as well.
Oh yes, I would also like to talk about the crime rate in the Northern Territory, because it's been roughly a year since their new bail laws, which has seen the number of Indigenous kids in detention in the Northern Territory double from this time last year to November, so I can only imagine what's happened since November. So you're locking up more kids and crime is increasing. So if we were to view these new laws as their intention was to deter crime, it's a failure. That's if we were to view this from the perspective of a concerned, naive onlooker. Because from the perspective of the people that wrote the amendment, they probably view this as a success because it's done exactly what they intended it to do. I feel like it was only appropriate to talk about the Youth Detention Centre in Northern Territory as well. Because I don't know how many people are aware of this, but 1,200 youths that were locked up there between 2006 and 2017 are to share a $35 million settlement for the way they were treated. And Australians might remember this, like I'll briefly show the picture when that all came out. So let's quickly go through some of the things that happened there. You had the tear gas. Guards used to threaten the detainees with isolation and make them fight for their entertainment. Guards were sending Snapchats of them telling detainees to eat animal. The same guard also filmed these children where they used the toilet. And the same guard also did this. This guy's free. He was not sent to fucking prison. After all the stuff I just mentioned.
Kids as young as 10 in prison cells. Kids have told us what happens inside. It's too horrifying to share. Most of our innocent of any crime. If you think this barbaric treatment of children is wrong, text now and add...
I haven't posted anything about Scott Morrison for a while, and I thought we should revisit something from a while ago. Something that didn't get much attention then, so definitely needs more attention now.
We've been here again at Christmas Island today Mr Prime Minister, I closed this detention centre, and the last thing I want to do is have to open it. That's all down to Bill Shorten, when he went into Parliament and decided to undermine our border protection laws. What he has weakened, I have strengthened.
And now I'd like to show you footage that I've posted on TikTok before, which is from Christmas Island, filmed by someone who came to Australia when they were 2 years old and now has been deported back to the UK as a 57-year-old man. And when I posted that footage to Twitter, it made its way to a senator.
Senator McKim.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Immigration and the Minister for Home Affairs. Minister, can you confirm that earlier this year there was a significant disturbance or riot at the Christmas Island Detention Centre that involved up to 200 canisters of tear gas being fired into the compound? What was the nature of the disturbance, and were there any injuries?
Alright, as I go through the timeline, I really want you to take in all of the information. So in August of 2020, they reopened Christmas Island, where it cost $55 million for 6 months. And so it opened in August 2020. By January 2021, there's riots and parts of the complex are being burnt, which then led to the tear gas and rubber bullets. And see, it says the ability to remove unlawful non-citizens from Australia was curtailed by the coronavirus pandemic. Because you see, what do they mean by unlawful citizen? Because Christmas Island is where this family was held at the expense of the Australian taxpayer. And that's also where the person who filmed that footage was held, who came to Australia as a young child with their family from England. And the person that filmed that footage, he spent time in prison in Australia, in South Australia. Which then adds to, why are you doing both to somebody? Why would you imprison them and then deport them? And talking about prisons, the thing with them is, you know how long you're going in there for. You don't with detention centres. And now quickly back to the tear gas. There was like 200 canisters fired into that complex, so it seems like there's just barely over 200 people there. And think about it, if they had to look up someone who spent 55 years in Port Adelaide, they really must have been searching to make up the numbers.
This is cold. I don't hold a hose, mate. We don't have to mandate people wearing sunscreen and wearing hats in summer.
When students wanted more action on climate change.
Don't support the idea of kids not going to school to participate in things that can be dealt with outside of school. Speaker, what we want is more learning in schools and less activism in schools.
Violence against women.
Far from here, such marches, even now, are being met with bullets. But not here in this country, Mr. Speaker. Not here in this country. This is a triumph of democracy when we see...
How come we only had 4 trucks to defend our town? What about the people who are dead now, Mr. Prime Minister? What about the people who have nowhere to live?
You're not welcome, you fuckwit!
Tell the Prime Minister to go and get...
I've known Brian for a long time, and Hillsong Church has a very big network of churches all across the United States. He lied to you?
I don't think. I know.
Well, most importantly, what really happened at the Engadine McDonald's?
I'm a cunt.